Welcome back, everyone. We've returned with Chapter 4 of the novel Land of Zikola by the author Amr Abdel Hamid, translated into English for you. Let's dive right in and continue this incredible journey through the mysterious world of Zikola. Time passed, and the carriage driver urged the horse to go faster, while Khaled and Aseel continued their conversation inside the carriage on their way to the southern region. When they arrived, Khaled got down carrying his belongings and Aseel's bag. He quickly noticed that this region was very different from where he lived, and from the governor's district as well. The buildings were small, all single-story and closely packed together. The streets were filled with horses and donkeys, and naturally, with what those animals left behind. He looked around and saw old farming tools scattered about when Aseel spoke. Don't be surprised. This is the southern region, Zikola's agricultural area. Everyone here is a farmer, working their own land. They supply Zikola with wheat, rice, other crops, and all kinds of fruit. Then she added, "Today, you'll be helping me. No relaxing like you did in the governor's district." Khaled smiled. "All right." Aseel walked down one of the dusty streets of the region, with Khaled following, carrying her bag. They entered one of the houses, a simple one-story home, like the rest. Inside, a woman around 50 greeted them and led them to a small room where her husband lay, his left leg wrapped in bandages. Aseel turned to Khaled. "Khaled, I want you to help me replace his bandage, but be careful not to move the splint or cause him any pain." He nodded, lifted the man's injured leg gently, and supported it with his arms, while Aseel unwrapped the old bandage. Khaled watched closely as she worked. She took a new bandage from her bag, then a small jar of thick green herbal paste. She spread a bit on the man's leg and began wrapping it again. The man asked, "When can I go back to work?" Aseel replied, "Your bones haven't healed yet. It still hurts, doesn't it?" The man sighed. "Yes, but I must work. I haven't worked for a month now, and I can feel my fortune slipping away. I need to make up for it." Aseel smiled softly. "You must be patient until your leg heals. Then you'll make up for lost time." She turned to Khaled. "See, Khaled? This is how I wrap the bandage." Khaled nodded. "Yes, it looks easy." Aseel handed him the bandage. "Good. You'll finish it while I check on a sick girl nearby." Khaled mimicked her calm tone. "All right." He asked the man to keep his leg still and continued wrapping the bandage just as Aseel had shown him. She watched him for a moment, impressed by his precision, then left. Khaled finished carefully, then asked the man, "Do you live here with just your wife?" The man nodded. "Yes." Khaled frowned. "And your children?" The man's face darkened. "They're grown now. They left me after I divided my land among them." Khaled was astonished. "You gave them your land?" The man nodded bitterly. "Yes, they forced me. They attacked me more than once and swore they'd kill me if I didn't give it to them. They're afraid of poverty, just like everyone here. Once they got what they wanted, they abandoned me." Khaled murmured to himself, "No mercy in Zikola." Just then, a woman burst into the room, shouting frantically, "Where's Dr. Aseel? Where's Dr. Aseel?" Khaled stood up. "She'll be back soon. Why do you need her?" The woman, sobbing, replied, "My son fell ill suddenly, and it looks serious. I'm afraid he'll die before she returns." The injured man gestured toward Khaled. "He's her assistant. Seems he's as skilled as she is." Khaled raised his eyebrows. "No, I'm not skilled. I'm not a doctor." But the woman grabbed his arm desperately. "Please, I'll give you anything you want. Just save my son." She pleaded and pulled at him as he tried to explain that he knew nothing about medicine. She refused to believe him, and finally he agreed to go, just to calm her down. Before leaving, he asked the injured man to tell Aseel where he had gone once she returned. Khaled went with that woman, the one who had been running barefoot, dragging him along as she screamed. He was right. He's never been sick before. They finally reached her house. It was simple, with a large basin of water in the middle. Then they entered a small room where a child lay unconscious on a little bed. Khaled didn't know what to do. He tried to explain that he was still new as Aseel's assistant, but the woman didn't give him a chance to speak. She cried out, "My son will die if he doesn't live to see his 10th year." Khaled stood there, bewildered, looking at the child without moving. The woman kept shouting, "He works so hard. Every day, despite his young age, he never stops. The heat of the sun means nothing to him. All he cares about is his work." Khaled suddenly turned his gaze to the child when he heard the mother's cries. He remembered how scorching the sun had been that day. He approached and found the boy's skin extremely dry. When he touched his forehead, it was burning hot. The child was muttering incoherently. Khaled lifted him up and carried him to the basin in the middle of the house, placing him in the water fully clothed. The mother was shocked by what he did, but she didn't stop him. Then he asked, "Do you have water colder than this?" She replied, "No, but I can buy cold water from my neighbors." She hurried out, while Khaled continued what he was doing, lifting the child out of the water, then placing him back again, until the mother returned with a woman carrying containers of cold water. They poured it into the basin. Khaled then told her, "Open all the windows. I need cool air to enter." The mother rushed to do so. Afterwards, he took the child out of the water, removed his wet clothes, and laid him on the cool floor. He left him there for a while, uncertain whether what he was doing was right or wrong. Some time passed. Khaled waited for Aseel, but she was late. He remained beside the boy, who was still unconscious, while the mother continued crying. Khaled tried to calm her, but couldn't. At last, Aseel arrived. She found Khaled kneeling next to the child, who lay naked on the floor. She asked urgently, "What have you done? Why is he lying on the floor like that? And what is all this water?" Khaled answered, "He was burning up. I suspected a heat stroke." Aseel began to examine the boy, while the mother sobbed beside her. Then, suddenly, the boy opened his eyes, looking for his mother before Aseel could even do anything. She placed her hand on his forehead and asked Khaled, "Was his temperature higher than this before?" Khaled touched the boy's forehead and smiled with relief. "Yes, it's much lower now. He was hotter before." Aseel smiled too, then turned to the mother. "He's fine now." She took a bottle from her bag, handed it to the woman, and instructed her to give the boy a dose each day until he recovered. The woman thanked her, then turned to Khaled and said he was a skilled doctor. Khaled laughed. "Believe me, I'm no doctor." She asked, "How much do you want?" Khaled replied, "No, I don't want anything. Just pay the doctor." But Aseel said, "No, I'll only take the cost of the medicine. The rest is yours. You're the one who saved him, not me." Khaled smiled, "And I don't want any payment. You already bought the cold water. That's enough." The woman thanked him again and stared at him for a while in silence, until Khaled felt uneasy and left with Aseel. As they walked away, she asked, "Khaled, are you really not a doctor?" Khaled laughed. "No, I swear I'm not." She pressed, "How then? The first time you saved that boy from drowning and said it was from a first aid course. Today you bandaged a wound perfectly. And now you've saved another child. I wouldn't have known what to do." Khaled answered, "Just coincidence. Once when I was young, a friend fainted while we were playing. He was burning up, just like this boy. I watched as the doctor cooled him down, just as I did now. He said it was heat stroke. So when I saw this child, and his mother said he worked under the sun, I remembered that exact scene. When you were late, I thought, I might as well try. Maybe a few minutes could make a difference. Honestly, I didn't know what would happen, but luck was on my side. The boy woke up. Aseel smiled softly. I admire your quick thinking, Khaled. Today you proved yourself to be a fine assistant. But you didn't take your payment again. You deserve it. Khaled smiled. It was a good deed, something I had to do. Not everything should have a price. Could Zikola truly be a land where no good deed is ever done? Aseel laughed and replied, Still, you should have taken it. You used your mind, and your mind is your wealth here. Every time you think, you spend a part of that wealth. Khaled smiled faintly. Now I understand why no one thinks in Zikola, but I don't need a reward for saving a life. Aseel smiled. Very well. Go search this area for your book. I'll visit a few of my patients and wait for you in the carriage. Khaled began his search in that region, astonished as he recalled Yamen's words about the vastness of Zikola. The regions weren't as large as Yamen had described, but they did require some means of transportation to move from one area to another. The southern region was known for its abundance of farmland. As Khaled passed through, he saw wide expanses of wheat fields and other crops. He wondered how such agriculture could thrive in desert land, but then he remembered something important. The people of Zikola could move mountains if they wished, for hard work was their way of survival. He began asking people about the book and the man who resembled him but was older. As he expected, no one had any answers. Each time he asked, he was met with blank stares or ridicule. Some even mocked him for asking about such a book. But Khaled did not give in to despair. He kept questioning everyone he met, even the farmers who worked the land, yet none knew anything either. Finally, he sat under a tree, took out his papers and pen, and wrote at the top of the page, "The Southern Region." Then below it he wrote, "It seems that the Southern Region, too, holds neither the book nor its owner. No one here knows anything about the Vault of Forik. What amazed me most in this region is its deep devotion to agriculture and its lack of interest in anything else. Here, as in the other parts of Zikola I've seen, everyone works diligently and wastes no time. They have turned the desert into fertile soil, and now I understand why Zikola has no need to open its gates to the outside world. The nation depends entirely on its own people for everything, never relying on other lands. The southern region produces the crops that feed Zikola. The eastern region, where I reside, is known for its industries, especially those Zikola needs, like brickmaking, clothing production, and more. And as Yamen told me, the western region hosts a vast market where one can buy anything made by Zikolans themselves. They have achieved complete self-sufficiency through their labor and their fear of poverty. That is why they believe Zikola is the strongest nation in existence. And I think I agree. Their strength lies in their independence. He stopped writing when he noticed a woman approaching, the same one whose child he had saved earlier. Surprised, he watched as she came closer and asked, "Are you searching for a tall, broad man who speaks with an accent like yours, only older?" Khaled replied eagerly, "Yes. Do you know him?" The woman nodded. "You reminded me today of a day long ago. I was 17 then, working in the northern region. That's when I met a man who looked like you, spoke like you, and whose wife was unlike the women of Zikola. He once helped me, just as you did today, and convinced me to return to work here." Khaled leaned forward. "So he was in the northern region?" "I don't know where he is now," she said, "but he was there 20 years ago. I hope you find him." She smiled and added, "When you saved my son, I remembered him. After you left, someone told me you were searching for a man with those same traits, but you hadn't asked me." Khaled said, "I was so worried about your son that I forgot to ask you." Then he asked, "Are you sure about this man?" "Yes," she replied firmly. "I remember him well." "Did he have a book that mentioned the Vault of Forik?" Khaled asked. "I don't know," she answered. "I've told you all I remember. But my advice to you, don't waste your time searching here. Everyone here works in farming. They care little for books or reading. I know everyone in this region, and none match the description of the man you seek. I hope he's the one I told you about." Khaled smiled. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." She smiled back. "I'm not the one who deserves thanks. Had you not saved my son this morning, I would never have gone looking for you to tell you this." Khaled smiled again, then politely excused himself and hurried toward Aseel's carriage, his heart leaping with renewed hope. But when he arrived, Aseel was nowhere to be found. Khaled remained waiting for Aseel, his heart feeling that his time in Zikola was drawing to an end. He remembered the words of that woman and smiled, thinking about the coincidence, that it was a woman whose child he had saved from death who would tell him such things. Then his thoughts drifted to the man who looked like him, and his wife, as that woman had described her, different from the women of Zikola. Could she be his mother? Could his dreams truly come true, and would he find them here in Zikola? He felt that what the woman had said confirmed his suspicions, yet he wondered again. Would he find them there after 20 years, or would fate fail him once more? Then he saw Aseel approaching from afar, carrying her bag. He hurried toward her, took the bag from her hands, and walked beside her toward the carriage. With a bright smile, he said, "Aseel, I've found new hope." He told her everything the child's mother had told him, finishing his story as they both got into the carriage. Then he asked, "When are we going to the northern region?" Aseel fell silent for a moment, looked at him and replied, "I'm not going to the northern region." Khaled was taken aback and immediately asked, "You're not going? Why not?" Aseel fell silent again, her gaze drifting toward the window as the carriage began to move. It was as if she were recalling something distant. Then she turned to Khaled and spoke softly. "I once made a promise never to go there." "A promise?" Aseel nodded. "Yes. You remember I told you I entered Zikola among the captives and slaves, until a wise man bought me and taught me medicine?" Khaled nodded silently, and she continued. "That man treated me like his daughter. He was always protective, afraid something might happen to me. One day, I told him that someone had asked me to go to the northern region to treat a patient. To my surprise, he firmly refused and made me promise never to go there for as long as I live. And I did." Khaled asked, puzzled. "Why? What was the reason?" She replied, "When I asked him, he only said it was the land of Zikola's idlers, and he never told me more until his death. But I've kept my promise ever since. And I'm certain he was right." After a moment of silence, she added softly, "I've never met anyone who loved or valued me the way he did." Khaled fell silent, sadness shadowing his face. He chose not to speak, as though lost in thought about what to do next. Then he smiled and looked at Aseel, whose eyes were still fixed on the stars above. "And I won't be the reason you break your promise. Thank you for all your help these past days. I won't ask more of you." Aseel smiled gently. "Are you really going there?" He smiled back. "Of course, I have to go." Aseel smiled again. "Very well, I hope you find your book there. But if you don't, you must come back to me, to work with me again, I mean." "Where else could I find an assistant as skilled as you?" Khaled laughed. "When I return to Egypt, I'll be a doctor." Aseel laughed too, and they continued joking together, talking about the land of Zikola, about the child Khaled had saved from sunstroke, and about the man who had been beaten by his sons and had his land taken. When the carriage finally reached the lake, Khaled got off and bid Aseel farewell. She asked him, "When will you go to the northern region?" He paused, thinking. "I don't know. I'll try to go soon." She smiled. "You must tell me before you go. And if you ever write something about Aseel the star, I must be the first to read it." Then she ordered the driver to move on, and Khaled laughed, turning toward the tree he always sat beside. As usual, Khaled kept thinking. thinking about what the child's mother had told him, and about that man who looked so much like him. He remembered the photograph his grandfather had given him the day he went down into the cellar, the one that was lost along with his belongings there, the photo of his father and mother. Daydreams teased him. Visions of returning one day to his homeland with his parents after so many years apart. He smiled at the thought of his grandfather's joy so great it might even kill him. Then his mind drifted back to Aseel's words, to the promise she had made not to go to the northern region, calling it the land of the lazy. He wondered to himself, puzzled. How could lazy people live in Zikola? Sleep soon overcame him, exhaustion from the long day weighing him down. The night passed swiftly, and the sun rose. Khaled awoke and decided, as usual, to go to work with Yamen. He wanted to learn more about the northern region. When he arrived, his irritation grew as he saw the same men who took 2 units from him every day. He handed them over, then continued walking until he found Yamen, who immediately asked, "Did you find your book?" Khaled replied, "Unfortunately, not yet, but there's still hope. A woman told me she once met a man who looked exactly like the book's owner 20 years ago." Yamen, surprised, said, 20 years? And you still want to find him? It's difficult, I know, but I have to hold on to any clue that might lead me to the book. That's why I must go to the northern region. Yamen's eyes widened again. The northern region? Yes. Then Khaled asked him, "Did you promise someone too that you wouldn't go there?" Yamen laughed. "No. I've been there once before. I just hope if you go, you come back quickly." "What's there?" Yamen sat down, and Khaled sat beside him. Then Yamen began. "Everyone in Zikola knows that region is very different from the rest." Khaled asked, puzzled. "Different how?" Yamen continued. "Let me explain. The land of Zikola is a land of work. Everyone here works and earns their living through labor. But that region gathers the lazy of Zikola. You'll find it difficult there because most people do not even know one another. You will have to ask around." He took a breath, exhaled deeply, then went on. "They don't work like we do. They earn their income through other means." He paused, then added, "You'll find 2 kinds of people there. The first are the wealthy idlers, those who inherited great intelligence and fortune. They live in luxury, spending lavishly until they die. The second are the poor, those who fear being slaughtered but refuse to do hard labor. They've found other ways to make their fortune." Then he pointed to the men collecting units in exchange for protection. "See those men?" Khaled nodded. "They're from the northern region you want to visit. That's how they live, using their strength to make money. They've spread across all of Zikola. As for the women there, they've chosen to use their beauty instead." He fell silent, looked at Khaled, and added quietly, "You know how a woman can make a fortune from her beauty without effort, especially with so many wealthy idlers around. It's a land of vice, my friend." Khaled was silent after hearing Yamen's words. A faint smile appeared on his face as he remembered that the owner of the book, his father, might be in that very region. Yamen interrupted his thoughts. "It's far from here. How will you get there? Will the doctor help you?" Khaled replied, "No. Aseel's helped me enough already." "Tell me, Yamen, where can I rent a strong horse for 3 days?" 3 days could cost you around 50 units, Yamen said. "That's fine. I can make it up later. I've decided I'm going to the northern region tomorrow. I want to make use of every day I have here in Zikola." Yamen smiled. "All right, I'll get you a strong horse and show you the road north. I hope you find your book there." Then he lifted his axe and said to Khaled, "Come on, we've got a lot of work to do today. We've already wasted too much time talking." The next morning, Yamen headed to the lakeshore, taking with him the strong horse he had promised Khaled. When he found Khaled there, Khaled smiled as he saw him with the horse and thanked him warmly. Then he gathered his belongings, hugged Yamen, and laughed. "I'll see you soon." Yamen smiled back. "Just make sure you return the horse in one piece. I'm responsible for it until you come back. If its owner knew you were going to the northern region, he wouldn't have lent me a donkey." Khaled laughed, mounted the horse, and was about to move when Yamen called out, "Wait." He pulled out a white sheet of paper with a few black lines drawn on it and said, "These are rough markings I drew for the road to the northern region." He pointed to a long black line extending from a small square he had drawn. "This square is our region, and this line is the road I'll take from here until you reach the northern area." Khaled smiled, took the paper and tucked it among his belongings. "Thank you, Yamen. Truly, thank you, my friend." Then Khaled urged his horse forward. It started moving slowly, then faster and faster as he made his way toward Aseel's house. Just as he neared it, he saw her carriage moving away. He spurred his horse and caught up beside it, laughing when he saw her sitting inside, lost in thought, not noticing him. He kept riding silently next to the carriage until she glanced out the window and was startled to see him there on horseback. She laughed and said, "How long have you been riding beside us?" Khaled chuckled. "For quite a while. What were you thinking about?" She smiled softly. "Oh, nothing really. I just get lost in my thoughts sometimes." Then she looked at his horse. "Did you buy a horse?" Khaled replied, "No, I rented it. And as I promised, I wanted to see you before I left. Here I am." Aseel smiled and asked, "You're going to the northern region now?" "Yes," Khaled answered. Aseel fell silent for a moment, then asked quietly, "Khaled, will you come back here if you find your book or your father?" Khaled looked ahead, silent for a moment, then smiled. "Of course I'll come back." And then, jokingly added, "Yamen will kill me if I don't return for his horse." Aseel laughed, and so did Khaled. They continued through the streets of Zikola, Khaled riding beside the carriage while Aseel sat by her window as if watching from her own room. When they reached the edge of the eastern region, Aseel pointed toward a paved road and said, "That road leads to the northern region." Khaled smiled and looked at her. "I hope I'll find the book and return as soon as possible." Then he urged his horse forward along that road, while Aseel's carriage turned the other way. She watched him go, smiling as the wind played with his long hair, and his strong figure rode the horse with such grace, as though he were born a knight. She closed her eyes and wished him success as he vanished from sight. Khaled continued toward the northern region, determined to get there quickly. He urged his horse to go faster, then pulled out the map Yamen had given him, studying the lines before tucking it away again. Whenever fatigue overtook him, he stopped for brief rests, dismounting, drinking a little water, and continuing on his way. As the sun set and night fell, Khaled reached the outskirts of the northern region. He dismounted and walked beside his horse, marveling at the diversity of the homes there, some grand and luxurious, others poor and shabby. The streets were eerily quiet at first, but as he moved deeper inside, the silence gave way to laughter and music. People were dancing and singing, filling the streets with noise and energy. Khaled remembered Yamen's words about the girls of this region as he noticed their revealing clothes, unlike those worn by women elsewhere in Zikola. More exposed, more seductive. He continued walking until he found a crowd gathered around two men fighting in the center of a circle. Someone nearby said to another, "I bet 15 intelligence units on that man." The comment caught Khaled's attention, but he kept walking, asking around about the man he was looking for. Nobody would answer. He asked again and again, still nothing. The people smelled of alcohol, and laughter from the painted women of the night filled every corner. Tired, Khaled sat by the roadside, his horse beside him. Soon, a large man approached and demanded 10 intelligence units in exchange for protecting Khaled and his horse, or else he'd take the horse. Khaled thought for a moment, then said, I'll give you what you want, plus 2 extra units if you keep the horse safe until I return for it tomorrow, the man agreed. Khaled handed over the horse to move more freely and sat watching the people from a distance. The night passed without him closing an eye. By morning, the place was silent again, eerily so. The city felt like one of the dead, streets empty, stillness everywhere. Khaled walked through the silent roads hoping to find someone, but found no one. He finally sat down, took out his pen and papers, and wrote, "The Northern Region, the land of Zikola's idlers." Below it, he wrote, "This is the 4th region I've visited in Zikola. From my first day here, I've seen how different they are. They live only at night, as Yamen told me." He continued writing, "Most of them are ignorant, wasting what they inherited on drink, pleasure, and gambling. The poor seek wealth and brute strength, the women in their beauty. Each uses what they have to gain intelligence without effort." He paused, thinking, then wrote again, "Many of them will likely be slaughtered soon. Strength fades with time, but beauty endures." He laughed softly and murmured to himself, "You've become quite the philosopher, Khaled. Zikola has changed you." Finally, he ended with, "It is the weakest region in all of Zikola." He tucked away his notes and began walking again through the lonely streets. Time passed slowly until dusk. When night fell once more, fires were lit and the city awoke. Music blared, girls filled the streets, each trying to attract a man. The crowd grew dense, laughter and noise returning to the same streets that had been lifeless hours ago. Khaled began asking again, this time the elderly, hoping they might remember the tall, broad man with the book from 20 years ago. But still, no one knew. Frustration set in. He was about to give up when he heard a voice behind him. "You." He turned and saw a young woman he thought he recognized. Then he remembered. She was the girl he'd met on his first day in Zikola, the one who had invited him to go with her, and he had refused. Now she was dressed far more revealingly. "You," he said in surprise. She laughed. "Yes. You remember me?" "I do." "Good. You're coming with me this time." "Where are we going?" he asked, puzzled. She pulled him by the hand into a dimly lit place filled with people, each man sitting with a woman. Suspicion filled his heart. "What do you want from me?" he asked. She smiled. "Me? I just want to renew my offer. You're the only man who's ever turned me down. Tonight I offer myself to you again, but this time for free." Khaled stood up angrily. "No, I'm not like the men who come here." He tried to leave, but she stopped him. "Do you prefer another girl, then?" "No," he snapped. "Then why?" He looked at her sternly. "How can you live like this, selling yourself to anyone?" She laughed mockingly and took a sip of wine. "How else am I supposed to survive in Zikola, handsome? How else do I earn intelligence, wealth?" Khaled exhaled deeply, muttering, "Intelligence," then said, "You could work honestly, like the women in the other regions do. Haven't you thought about what happens when your beauty fades? How will you earn your intelligence then?" She laughed again, her voice slurred by drink. "By then I'll have stored enough wealth. Those other girls work, and so do I. We all get paid, don't we? Come on, enjoy it while my beauty lasts. There are plenty outside who'd kill to be in your place." Anger flared in Khaled's eyes. His patience snapped. "Women like you are a disgrace to Zikola." He turned to leave, but she shouted after him, "A disgrace? I'm better off than someone I know. Someone who killed his own father to inherit him." Her voice dropped suddenly. She rested her head on the table, drunk, and mumbled words that chilled him. And in the end, all he inherited was a damned book his father had kept for over 20 years. Then she fell silent, her eyes closing.